Jason Byrne of the Irish Sun joins me to talk about Tyrone against Donegal this weekend in the Ulster Football Championship. We'll have to put the cards on the table first of all, Jason, and say that you are a Donegal man. How how heavily, like, how intense are these games against Tyrone? Because we've seen so many of them in the last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, they're fairly intense, Shane. My mum's from Tyrone, so they're fairly intense inside the walls of my home house, never mind Ballbafay or Healy Park or Clonus or wherever they come across each other. Um, the big one that springs to mind for me was the 2013 game in Ballbafay when they met each other in the first round of the Ulster Championship. The place was just absolutely packed. Donegal were all Ireland champions, and it was just such a cauldron atmosphere that day. Like Donegal won on the day. They got 2 goals, I think, and that proved the difference. Like, and it was remembered for Neil McGee's shoulder on Stephen O'Neill. Like, just those days come back into your head when you think about the rivalry. Um, it's going to be very strange this week with no crowd. Like, normally Ballbafay, you play in Tyrone in the championship. The game's at 1:30. Like, the place would be buzzing from 10 in the morning, easily, if the crowds were going to be there. So that's going to be the big thing this weekend, like, because the two counties are just so close to each other. It's a massive rivalry. Like Donegal had the upper hand for a long time. Jim McGuinness was in charge, and Tyrone put Donegal would have taken great pleasure out of putting Donegal out of the championship in 2019 in the final round of the Sub Race in Ballbafay. Like, it was always the thing that Ballbafay was a bogey place for Tyrone, but they blew that notion up in smoke 2 years ago when they ended up getting to the All Ireland final. So, like, it's going to be huge. This is one of the games you're going to be thinking it's such a pity that there's no crowds. Like, it's going to be so strange. I can't get my head around that at all. Just thinking that Donegal playing Tyrone in the championship with no crowd. It'll be the same for yourself when Limerick play Tip this weekend. It's just going to feel so odd. It's all good and well going to these league games, and it's great to be there from a media point of view. It's great to get in the door, like, but championship now is championship, and it's going to be so peculiar. But yeah, can't wait for it too. Like, it's so hard to call at the minute, based at the weekend. Like, Tyrone threw out their full hand pretty much against Mayo and got a great result, and Donegal made a rake of changes for their long trip to Kerry, and you couldn't really blame them considering the journey that was involved and everything else. And Declan Bonner clearly wanted to put a lot of his main men into a bubble and have them right for the weekend. So it's really hard to call it at the minute, Shane. Like, I think Donegal would just edge it based on what we've seen so far and based on both panels, but it really could go either way. Like, it's so hard to know.
Yeah, and it was a tight game between the two teams a week beforehand in the league. Donegal edging it out by 3 points. Are there any particular players or any particular kind of matchups that you're looking out for in this game? I mean, if you're trying to hype it up to the last, you're thinking this is a clash of Michael Murphy and Conor McKenna. Who can do more damage? I mean, we saw them kind of smashing against each other at one stage in the physical exchanges in that league match a couple of weeks ago. It was great stuff. But are there any particular players that you think might decide this one?
Well, those two men, as you said, based on what we've seen so far, like, I'm sure they'll come across each other a wee bit on Sunday. They'll not be marking each other for sure, but between both of those, like, Murphy didn't play in Donegal's game against Kerry, which was effectively a dead rubber for Donegal, even though Kerry needed the win to ensure league silverware. Um, Ryan McHugh has been the victim of a lot of unwarranted attention from opposition players in the last few years, especially since he burst onto the scene in 2014 and had that magical All-Ireland semi-final against Dublin. So Tyrone are going to be giving him a lot of attention too. The sides met each other last year in Breffni Park in the Ulster quarterfinals, and Peter Hart went off with a black card in the first half, and that, Donegal won well in the day, but that incident was massive. Like, Paddy McBurty was magical that day too. He didn't play in Kerry. It'd be interesting to see if he features now at the weekend, how he gets on. So yeah, like, it's like Ryan McHugh, Michael Murphy, Paddy McBurty are your big three to watch now from Donegal, and especially how Donegal set themselves up and where Murphy features. Then you're going to have the battle of the two goalkeepers too, Sean Patton and Niall Morgan, both great kickers, can get great distance in the ball. Niall Morgan as we said in the previous piece, that how advanced he plays now and his distribution, like, and how he didn't go short once against Mayo really, and how he plays as a sweeper nearly at times behind his defenders, and how he can carry the ball forward. Patton can do that too, but Morgan just is mad for it now all the time. In terms of who marks Conor McKenna, you'd think it would be Stephen McMenamin for Donegal. He's one of the best man markers there too. Neil McGee will probably come back into the full back line too, and if Tyrone start Derek Canavan, it'll be an old dog against the new boy there. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. Neil no doubt will give him a lovely welcome to McCool Park if he ends up marking him anyway, that's for sure.
Isn't it crazy to think that one of those two teams is going to be out after this weekend? We're not long back playing competitive games. It's only a couple of weeks of league. And then Donegal or Tyrone, who are two top teams, top five teams, we'll say, in Ireland anyway, loosely. Whereas Dublin, we know, are going to coast through Leinster. So they're going to be in it all the way to the All-Ireland semi-final stages. But it's so difficult for teams in Ulster, for example, isn't it?
Yeah, it's mad. Like, you'd around Killybegs, like you'd listen to the likes of Barry McGowan and Manus Boyle talk about their day back in the early 90s when it was you lose, you're gone, like, and that was the real championship. Them boys will all tell you, but yeah, it's mad. Like, it's hard for the current generation to get their heads around that, whereas the older generation, it was all they were used to until the qualifiers came in 2001. Like, you think of those days in the 90s when the Ulster champions often went on to win the All-Ireland. You had Down in 91, Donegal in 92, Derry in 93, and Down again in 94. So like, it is still the most competitive championship in my eyes, with Connacht behind that. So you've Armagh back strong now, on the back of getting promoted. Derry will fancy themselves as well under Rory Gallagher, Down promotion for them too. So things are on the up again for the likes of those teams, but a lot of people will think that whoever wins in Ballafane Sunday will probably go on to win Ulster and get into an All-Ireland semi-final, which is on a collision course with the Leinster champions, who you would think would be Dublin. So do you rather come through 3 horrendous battles in Ulster and get to an All-Ireland semi-final, or do you rather be Dublin, who probably won't be tested in Leinster and coming in cold? It's hard to know, like.
So if you're to weigh up this weekend's game, Donegal against Tyrone, and I know obviously your heart is involved in this, how do you see it going?
I think Donegal just about edge it. Like, I could definitely see extra time coming. I could definitely see, like, if a black card happens, for instance, it's going to have a huge factor. And wouldn't be surprised if you saw a red somewhere either, because Tyrone will be looking to come down and get in Donegal's faces, and Donegal will be doing the exact same, welcoming them into Ballafane. Like, as strange as it's going to be with no crowd, there's still going to be a lot of tension out in the field. There's going to be a lot of words exchanged, and there's going to be a lot of hits as well. So I think Donegal would just edge it. If you look at both panels on paper and in terms of the match winners, if Michael Murphy is a big game, depending on where Donegal play him and depending how Tyrone handle him, he's still the difference for me. Just super player. Conor McKenna is the big worry now for me from a Donegal point of view, and Derek Canavan as well. I think the midfield battle, I think Donegal can definitely win that, if they keep their heads right from Morgan's kickouts too. So I think Donegal will just about shade it. My mother might have something to say about that, but I think they will just about shade it. It wouldn't surprise me at all if it went to extra time or even penalties, which doesn't even bear thinking about. But it wouldn't surprise me either, and it definitely wouldn't surprise me if there's a red card and maybe a black card or two in between as well, which could have a huge bearing on it, especially like it did last year when Peter Hart got that black card in the first half in Cavan.
Well, cheers, Jason Byrne, the Irish Sun. Appreciate it. Enjoy the game at the weekend.
Cheers, Shane.